It is the glue that binds a people to their culture and to each other, so sacred that many believe it is a gift from the Creator.
Growing up, Grandpa told me, he said, don't ever be ashamed of your language. You speak it. God gave us that language.
A precious gift from one generation to the next, winding its way through time. An inherent connection to identity, to belonging.
There's a lot of ways that I was taught by just observing my forefathers, you know. And those kind of things that I hold on to, and that's in my heart. Amen.
Amen.
When we hear this language, we know that it's ancient. We know that it belongs to us.
Some elders have long held that if it was lost, the world would end.
Chickasaw lost the language when Judgment Day come.
And toward the end of the 20th century, Chikashshanompa, or Chickasaw language, was becoming endangered.
For generations and generations, Chickasaw was the only language that we spoke, the only language our ancestors spoke.
However, that changed when during the 19th and 20th centuries, English spread like a prairie fire, dominating the landscape across the country, including in Indian Territory, later to become Oklahoma. The Chickasaw people learned to adapt to a changing world for survival.
My grandmother did not teach her children to speak Chickasaw, and the reason why she didn't was she told all of them, you're going to have to live in a white man's world.
There are many reasons indigenous languages, including Chikashshanompa, historically became endangered. Disproportionate numbers of English-speaking people moving into native communities, the forced boarding school era, assimilation policies, and in many cases, parents and grandparents reluctant to teach the language of their ancestors out of a sense of duty and love for their children who had to survive in an English-speaking world. It was a tumultuous time for native culture and language.
We weren't allowed to speak Chickasaw when we started school. If they heard us, we told, you can't do that.
For many families in our community, the language has been not a part of their daily life for sometimes 4 or 5, 6 generations or more.
But the generation of leaders rising up in the late 20th century would not let it go quietly into the recesses of history.
Please place your hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Overton James.
Governor Overton James set the wheels in motion for a new era of language revitalization when he asked his mother, Vinnie May Humes, and her husband, Reverend Jesse Humes, to accept a daunting task.
To preserve our culture and our heritage and our language, and then that's why he approached my grandmother and Jess about writing the dictionary.
The Humes' hard work was a pivotal step for a new generation of speakers. The Chickasaw Dictionary has become a staple for fluent speakers and students of the language, and its impact will last for many generations to come.
Today we still use it. I refer to it sometimes when I can't find something in the other book. And it's there, it's just a simple word that the Humes had put in their dictionary.
It took several years after the first Chickasaw Dictionary was published, but the movement toward language revitalization kept going.
Since 2007 and the establishment of our language revitalization program, one of the main goals that we've had is to make sure that language materials are accessible, widely accessible, regardless of where one lives in the world. The purpose of this is to encourage people to realize the gift that they've been given and to engage with the language in whatever way they feel is appropriate, making sure that everyone has access to this language.
And now is a new decade of enthusiasm for revitalization. In 2022, Governor Bill Anatubby proclaimed the Decade of Chickasaw Language to focus attention on the many resources available to citizens to embrace their birthright, to revitalize Chikashshanompa, and increase the number of speakers and their proficiency in the language of their ancestors. With that promise, to meet new learners where they live.
Indigenous languages throughout the hemisphere and throughout the world are endangered. This was recognized by the United Nations and has been recognized by numerous international bodies. We're really at a turning point moment for the revitalization of Indigenous languages. I'm really happy that the nation is doing a great job of being part of that process. I think that having grown up in LA gives me a strong sense of what it means to grow up far from the culture and the language. There are so many of us in the nation that are spread out across the country, and we didn't have the opportunity to hear the language, to listen to speakers, to learn from speakers. And I think for a lot of people around the country, the language is a really important tie to the tribe. I teach a Rosetta Stone Chickasaw virtual community class. It's a pilot program run by the Language Division of the Chickasaw Nation. I have 16 students in 4 states across the country. There were several students who have been with me for several years. A small group of us were doing Rosetta classes independently as volunteers for a couple of years. I have students that are at very different points in their journey of language learning, but that makes it fun and interesting in the class because we started over with the first episode of Rosetta. I think Rosetta is very effective, and I think doing it as a community group class really adds something to it. I found on my own doing Rosetta that I was learning, but I was sort of struggling along, and I didn't have anyone to ask questions or say, well, why are they saying it like that? We have a whole range of students, from high school students to retired people, and I think overall, they're really all there because they're very committed to revitalizing Chickasaw culture and language and participating in that, and really just enjoy speaking our language. They're progressing really well. Some people had some knowledge from before, from the earlier classes. Some people started at ground zero in January, and I think for us, every word you learn, every sentence you learn how to construct, everything you learn how to say is a win. Technology is crucial to this, and my courses wouldn't happen without technology, and I think technology holds the potential to really expand what we can do in the future. I think it's so exciting and important that Governor Anatabi has proclaimed the Decade of Language and really shows the tribe's investment in the future of the language, and that's crucial. Right now, we're at a good place in contrast to a lot of tribes that I see through my work, in the sense that we have a lot of resources and we have a lot of people invested in getting the work done. I would love to see us in 10 years with, speakers who have come through the immersion programs, who are speaking Chickasaw in the home, who are passing the language on intergenerationally inside the household and creating new first language speakers. I would love to see all of our citizens able to exchange greetings in Chickasaw.
Chugma.
Chugma.
Say something, talk to each other in our language. For me, it's an honor and a privilege to be able to teach these classes. I also feel like it's also a responsibility to make the effort, to take the time to learn the language and to teach others whatever we know.
Fluent speakers are a priceless well of Chickasaw culture. They are the last vestiges of a generation who learned the language at home, a generation whose voices need to be preserved.
I'm Kimberly Johnson. I'm the lead transcriptionist for the Division of Language Preservation. My job is to create new recordings with fluent speakers of Chickasaw and to transcribe and work with fluent speakers to translate those recordings that we've created. Most of the fluent speakers actually say that they really don't use Chickasaw outside of our meetings at all. These people really don't often have an opportunity to speak their first language with anyone, so we started getting in touch with them and going to visit them. And we take a fluent speaker like Rose or Luther along with us, and they have a conversation, we record them, and that way their voice is able to be represented in what we're preserving.
Kimberly asked me if I could go, I am just happy to go because I want to hear the other fluent speakers and see what stories they have. It just brings back memories because we all went through the same thing. I just enjoyed the stories that they have to tell us and everything, you know. And to see them just like they really enjoy somebody that's there to understand what they're saying.
Every speaker has a way of speaking, a way of saying the words, certain words that they remember that maybe other speakers don't. And that's incredibly valuable for people who are learning the language. I really do enjoy this part of my job and going on visits to these fluent speakers because it feels great to see their faces light up when they begin speaking Chickasaw with the fluent speakers. A lot of times I can tell there's a language barrier even with their close family members. One of my goals for the Decade of the Chickasaw Language is to record with every fluent speaker in the Chickasaw Nation. I'm really passionate about doing this and being a part of language preservation because this is a really critical time for us, and we are really wanting to make sure that every fluent Chickasaw speaker's voice is captured and preserved and is available for future generations of learners to learn from them and their experiences.
I was gone, from the Chickasaw Nation for about 25 years. And I've always told my husband, I said, well, when we move back, I said, I'm gonna get involved in our language, our tribe, and do what I can do. Chickasaw was my first language, and I did not know how to speak English, and it was hard for me. And I wanted to be a part of helping what I can do in the language.
My name is Luther John. I live here in Ada now, but I'm from Fillmore, Oklahoma, and I work with the language department. I work with the academy and anyone that needs translating from English to Chickasaw. I've been speaking Chickasaw all my life since I was a child, and my grandmother and granddad raised me, and that's all she spoke. So when she talked to us at home, it was all Chickasaw, and I've never forgotten it. We were told we're in the white man's world, and we won't be able to speak to anybody else in Chickasaw because nobody won't know them. Everybody's going to college, and they just don't speak at home anymore. That's what we were told, and it's very painful to see that happening. But today, as the Chickasaw Nation is putting things together to be helpful in that area, just like the Academy and the group that I'm with, the Chickasaw Language Committee. I love it. I do. I really love it because I know they can answer me, they understand me, and it's great. It's great, and I pray that the Academy and the others that are learning today will carry it on. I am very happy to be a part of it. As a matter of fact, all my prayers is in Chickasaw. Tiba, Chihuahua. Anumpa yapa pamatuk. Yamitku hashmu machimashli. Chimatisale. Chikashshanompa shitanacha. Chinchipota. Chinchuka chafa. Muma. Ishitanacha chika chimatisale. The Lord has given us this language, the Chickasaw language. And I ask you, at your home or anywhere, that you will speak Chickasaw, teach your kids and your family, that we may never forget it.
My first language that I heard when I was born would be English because I was the only child born in a hospital. And so they said I spoke our native language until I was about 4 years old. And everybody back then was speaking English, not our native language, because some of these children couldn't speak. I didn't teach my children because I didn't see it was necessary, because we was taught not to speak our language when I was going to school. And children that went to government school, they said they got whipping for it. Well, I'm glad that they got tapes to learn from these things, because after I'm gone, nobody will be there, but they'll have these tapes that was made by their elders while they were still living, and that's going to be helpful to them, those that want to learn.
A younger generation does want to learn. Progress is happening, and our language is inspiring younger and younger Chickasaw students who are embracing their language.
There you go, good.
Hey, come on up. Before we get started, will you please go greet 3 people? Hey, Nunta Chokma, what's good in your life right now?
I teach Chickasaw here at Bing High School.
Where would the A's? Like that?
We would love for citizens all over the Chickasaw Nation to have the opportunity to take this class for Oklahoma World Language Credit. It's the ultimate goal.
So how do we determine which one?
We reach 9th through 12th because we want to be within the confines of that World Language Credit. We want it to be for high school credit.
Chukma, class, Chukma.
So it's helped tremendously. Here at Ada High School, you see the same students, the same hour, have 3 classes, and currently 35 students are enrolled. They get to hear it daily.
Malili.
Ada High School has been very supportive. They have had open arms with our language and just been really encouraging. Be here as a presence here with our language has meant a lot to our tribe.
Chimpona.
At the end of the decade of language, I definitely want to be in all those school districts across the Chickasaw Nation.
But it all goes back to our Chickasaw Nation mission to enhance the overall quality of life of the Chickasaw people. We live this mission and breathe this mission to pass on our language as it was given to us.
Chukali.
Took.
Took.
There you go. That's awesome. So good job, class.
Chimpona. Iflali. Onagma.
Why are students taking it? Because I get such a wide variety of answers. I get students that tell me really emotional, storied answers of my grandparents had it and they lost it, and I want to bring it back to them.
At a young age, I noticed my great-great-grandma, she had spoken Chickasaw, and my brother is also Chickasaw. And I had seen this class, and I remembered her, and I thought, wouldn't it be so cool if I could speak Chickasaw to her before she passes away?
And then I get students that tell me, I thought this looked really cool. I thought this looked really awesome, and I wanted to be a part of something cool and something awesome and learn something that not a lot of people are learning.
I have a great-grandpa who is Chickasaw, and my family's Chickasaw, so I just thought it'd be cool to, learn the language and get to know the culture a lot more. For me, it doesn't feel like pressure, but it feels like more of an honor, to keep the language going.
I find it more interesting that I get to be a part of something so monumental in the Chickasaw culture.
Does anyone remember the word for school?
Anyone who works with young people or is around young people kind of just knows how invigorating they are and how exciting it is to kind of watch them realize they do know that word, or they do know how to do that, they do know how to make something past tense or how to conjugate that, and watching them become empowered in the language has honestly filled me back up and made me excited in a way that I didn't know I was going to. It's really kind of reinvigorated me, and I'm so thankful for that. We couldn't do it without Rosetta Stone. Rosetta Stone is our curriculum that we base the entire course off of. I think what's really important that comes out of it is when you have a language that has such few speakers, and we want to be so sure that we are honoring the speakers that we have, and we want to be so sure that the language that we're passing down is correct and is right and is honorable to those speakers that we have left.
Let's listen to how Stan says it.
The one we have on the wall is Stanley Smith. We called him Moshi, Uncle. If he was here today, if he could see how far we came as a language department, because the program was created in 2007, he would be, I think, really, really proud.
It's Jerry! Oh my gosh!
We start here, and then it gets bigger. Then we have more people who want to participate, like in our academy, or who want to go to our college classes, or who want to come back and work for the language department, or who want to teach their family at home. I think that this is a starting point.
If the young parents speak to their children when they're first born and growing up, that will just becomes a part of them. And it shows them their identity. It's our responsibility as young parents to pass that down to them. Chikashshanompa elanompale katima. Chikashshanompa elanompale kiomat elachi. Ogia chikasha poyaka elasha katima.
A major focus over the next several years is to reach our youngest Chickasaws. From birth on, it is never too early to incorporate Chickasaw language into a child's world. Illustrator Lauren John is working on a series of children's books with traditional stories in Chickasaw.
Savannah is really nice to live in. I really like being able to just go out and about, go to the different stores, to the restaurants. I have been trying to incorporate my identity as a Native American, as a Chickasaw tribal member, but I feel more connected with the projects that the tribe specifically asks me to do because it has a lot to do with stuff that I've grown up with, a community and culture that I've been involved with ever since I was like a baby. The Creation Story is the next book that I'm going to be illustrating. It's about how a Babanili, or God, created the world using the assistance of animals like crayfish and raven. It was mainly the animals that shaped the land and the earth that we walk on. So I'm excited to give my take on it because taking such an abstract concept as like the creation of the world and translating it into an illustrative children's book is a really tough task, just in the abstractness of the beginning of time. I think it's important to just write down the stories because they've been passed down orally for so long that things are bound to get lost and changed over time. And I feel like having everything just written down in one place will help preserve them for much longer. If my work inspires young Chickasaws, it just feels surreal because I'm just a 22-year-old art student. It's crazy to think that down the line, a kid may think that Lauren John illustrated this really important story to our tribe, or they'll see my name and they'll think, that's the person that illustrated this book or this traditional story. It's an honor to think about that. My granny, she told me a lot about the traditional stories from our tribes and a lot about growing up in a very different era and tribe that we know today. And it's really impacted me because whenever I think about what our tribe has done and where we're at now, I think about how different it is compared to like what she had when she was growing up. And it's made me want to continue that. I want to make things even better for people that come after me. So I think that's just the influence that she left on me because she wanted what's best for me. I want what's best for people that come after. I think she would be very proud of me.
The Chickasaw Academy Adult Immersion Program is a 3-year program. The first 2 years are focused on building our conversational skills, learning vocabulary, speaking with elders.
I'm a participant in the Chikashshaw Academy Adult Immersion Program. In this program, what we do is listen to elders, listen to old stories, and learn how to speak our ancestral language.
And our third year is preparing us how to be teachers because they're molding us to be the teachers for the future cohorts. And so we have come a long way. Hey, Mom, Billy.
Growing up around it, I didn't learn it to speak it. I only heard words that were funny to me, that sounded funny. I learned words that made other speakers laugh. My dad and my aunties, they weren't taught the language. My grandparents were like, hey, you don't need this. You know, it was a choice out of love. We want you to succeed, so lovingly, we're not going to teach you our language. We want you to get really good at English and succeed in this world.
For me, language has been a recent discovery of a passion of mine. I have a grandfather who was full-blood Chickasaw, and he was a fluent speaker, and so were his parents, but he never passed that on to his children. You know, he went to boarding school, so it makes sense, and I understand why that happened. Whenever we first started out, I would practice speaking to my dog, and you know, she can't talk back to me, but I learned how to say some commands, and so I started teaching her that. So I would just practice talking with her, and so she knows a few Chickasaw words or Chickasaw commands, so that's really fun. Good
girl. Immersion learning is the way to do it because just within a couple months of immersion learning, you're going to be able to speak. You're going to be able to string together your sentences. You're going to be able to talk about what matters to you, things that you like, things that you dislike, things that you can cook, things you can't cook, things that taste bad or smell good, or talk about creating things. The language is now a piece of me. It's never going anywhere.
So personally, within the 10 years, I want our community to grow, our language community to grow. To have more people to speak with, have conversations with, is for me a really, really great success because then it's expanding beyond our building. I hope, at least by the time I'm an elder, that maybe I don't speak English anymore, that I can just stay in Chickasaw, and that would be awesome. Hey, Latia, Ella.
Go get.
Yafti,
Oh, yeah.
We're expanding the population of young adult speakers, people that are truly conversationally proficient in our language through the Academy program. We're developing plans right now for a building dedicated for the use of our staff and also our remaining native speakers. We're working on a baby pilot. We'd like to see children educated from birth on up in their own language. These are just some of the goals we have within the next decade. We really just encourage them to embrace it in whatever way feels appropriate for them. It's not about becoming a master fluent speaker. Just learn how to say hello. Ask someone how they're doing. Introduce yourself in a language. That's the doorway to the totality of what the language can be.
Chickasaw